It was a mistake to not let them come legally. That's what we need.
But that's not what the law said. The law said you can't enter the country illegally. Was that
There were
part,
definitely mistakes in the INA.
Was that
many
part,
mistakes?
Don't be cute. Was that part of the law a mistake? Yes or no?
The part of the law that says you can't come legally, yes, that was a mistake.
That was a mistake that you can't come illegally.
No, legally. Legally is what I said.
Okay. So you haven't answered my question, but that's okay. You're a smug guy, and that's part of your shtick.
This is your daily dose of all things royal.
This hearing today, I think, is timely. We're trying to look at the budget impact of a policy called sanctuary cities. Now, there are 200, I think, cities, 14 states, we got a chart here somewhere, that engage in the practice of sanctuary cities. Now, what is that practice? Local officials, state, local officials, basically have adopted a policy of not turning over to the federal government illegal immigrants subject to being turned over because they don't like the policy. They don't want to engage in deporting these people. Now, under President Obama, I think 3 million people were deported. Now, I don't believe any Republican refused to work with the federal government to deport these people. And when President Obama deported 3 million people, it was called being strong and good government. When we try to deport people as a result of being invaded by illegal immigrants for 4 years under the Biden administration, we're Nazis and bad guys. I don't buy that at all. I think most Americans would like to get control over our country and sovereignty over our nation. Immigration done right can be a tremendous benefit to the country. When you obliterate the borders for 4 years and people from all over the world flood in, you got a problem. And it needs to be fixed and cleaned up. As to ICE, if we can make ICE more professional, if we can do things at DHS that make it more professional, count me in. I think Mark Wayne Mullen will be a great secretary to do that. But to my Democratic colleagues, we'll never fix illegal immigration until you get to the source of the problem. And one of the problems we have is magnets to encourage future illegal immigration. Now, I got 12 sanctuary states, 200 cities. There are 25,000 people that ICE had a detainer on that were refused to be turned over. Next one. We believe it endangers public safety. 10,000 criminals released by sanctuary policies who went on to be arrested for additional crimes. They should have been turned over. They weren't. They stayed in the country and they committed crimes. $9 billion in fraud that we know of, and probably growing. 59% of legal immigrant households on government welfare programs costing taxpayers $42 billion a year. Well, that's some real money. Let me give you a real life example of what happens when you don't do this right. Fairfax, I think we're going to hear here in a minute from one of our sheriffs. Fairfax police warned prosecutors about repeat offender months before deadly bus stop stabbing. And this gentleman here, Bella, what's his name? Jalal, was in custody and had a pretty bad rap sheet. People in the prosecution business say, don't release this, deport this guy, turn him over. Don't release him. That was good advice. It was not taken. This young lady here, Stephanie Minter, was murdered by this man. And we had this man in detention in Fairfax County, and they refused to turn him over for deportation. He was allowed to stay in the county, and the rest is history. a young mom is dead because of that decision. And who was this guy? He came to the country in 2012. He was arrested 30 times, rape, malicious wounding, and assault. 2020, ICE submits a formal detainer to deport him. The request is blocked by Virginia's attorney for Fairfax County, a source-backed prosecutor and defender of sanctuary cities who ignored the detainer. On May 2025, he was arrested once more for stabbing an individual in the leg, but was again released. 30 arrests, May 2025, stabbed somebody in the leg, let him go again. February 2026, just months later, he murders Miss Benter. I'm not okay with that. I think that's offensive to who we are as a rule of law nation, to the people in Fairfax County, to this district attorney. I wish we could find a way for these people to sue you and make you pay a heavy price for ignoring your legal obligations under federal law and showing such poor judgment. How many arrests is necessary? How many people need to be stabbed before a guy like that is deported? And what's the upside of keeping him here? Is this the model citizen we want to keep in America? Now, there's an ideology around sanctuary city that needs to be broken, and we're here to break it. I've got legislation designed to change this dynamic. Going forward, if a local official or a governor, anybody, refuses to cooperate with federal government in turning over people subject to deportation under federal law, they can be prosecuted because they should be prosecuted. You've got to make it so that those who hang on to these illegal immigrants in defiance of federal law, that they feel the pain, not just the public. So my hope is that we can find a way forward to break the cycle of the damage being done from sanctuary cities, the cost incurred to the taxpayer, and what happened to Stephanie just like never happens again. We're not going to quit on this. If you want to defend it, you're welcome to do it. And this is not going away. You'll never have rational immigration as long as you have 12 states saying if you get here, you never leave. You're never going to fix this if you have 200 cities that practice sanctuary policy because the illegal immigrant believes I can get there and never leave. I've tried to work with Democrats, like many over here, to find a rational solution to our illegal immigration problem. We're not going to ignore 4 years of where Joe Biden obliterated our border. People came in from all over the world by tens of millions, flown into the interior of the country, and only God knows where they're at. Look at the number of people on the terrorist watch list, and highest gone up 2,700%, 21, 22, 23. Where are these people? They don't know. I asked. Nobody knows where they're at. So in this invasion during the Biden administration, we had 11,000 murderers. Look at the number of people on the terrorist watch list. They're in our country, and we don't know where they're at. So what we're going to do is be willing to reform ICE, try to fix problems that we've seen, but we're not going to give up on the idea that we need to right wrongs here and deport people that present danger and try to regain control over our immigration system. To my Democratic colleagues, what is the answer to sanctuary cities? Is it to continue the policy? Is it to eliminate the policy? All of us say eliminate it. I think the public is with us by like 80%. And until we eliminate the policy, you're going to see more and more stories like I just described. It is now time to call the question on sanctuary cities. Will it be the norm going forward in America, or will it change? To my colleagues on this side of the aisle, thank you for supporting this effort. We're fully committed to eliminating sanctuary cities for the good of the country. To my Democratic colleagues, we'd love to join with you in a rational way to do some things to make ICE more professional. But what you need to do in return is work with us to eliminate one of the biggest magnets to future illegal immigration, which is sanctuary city policy.
With that, Senator Markle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's been a year since we've had a meeting of this Budget Committee, and a lot has happened in that last year. Of course, one of the big things that happened was a piece of legislation that Trump called his big, beautiful bill, but most of us consider it a big, ugly betrayal of the American citizen. What did it proceed to do? Slash nutrition for hungry children, gutted health care for millions of families, enormously increased the wealth of the already wealthiest in our country. That's certainly not government by and for the people, that's government by and for the powerful. And it massively increased our national debt, estimated to be a $30 trillion increase over the next 30 years. And if interest rates are 1% higher than used in CBO model, call that a $50 trillion increase in national debt over the next 30 years. And it also massively increased the budget for ICE. I don't think you'll see many changes in budgets that look like this. You won't see a leap like this for housing in America, a fundamental need for families. You won't see this for health care in America. In fact, health care was savaged by the big, ugly bill. You won't see this for education in America, but you certainly see it for ICE. Now, these issues of the impact on nutrition budgets and healthcare budgets and housing budgets and deficit and debt and the budget for ICE, those are all very good topics for this committee to hold a hearing on. But we haven't held a hearing on that. Now, Trump has turned ICE into secret police. I can't believe that we now have secret police in America, but we do. I well recall studying secret police back when I was in college, and the basic mark of them was they'd show up in unmarked vans, unmarked uniforms, no judicial warrant, knock down doors without a judicial warrant, grab people, detain them, and often prevent them from having access and communication with families or lawyers. All of that's happening right now in America. We now have a secret police called ICE. And it's a tremendous black spot on our nation that this has happened under this administration. Freedom and privacy, laws, norms, and our Constitution all shredded. Heartbreakingly, 3 American citizens have been killed by ICE. Renee Good, Alex Preddy in Minnesota, and Ruben Ray Martinez in Texas. Now, when ICE killed Ruben Ray Martinez, they hid the fact. So most Americans aren't aware that a 3rd individual was killed. But recent reporting by CBS News obtained the body cam footage showing him being killed by an ICE officer in March of 2025. Now, ICE's budget has been increased by a factor of 7. The way that it operates has been dramatically changed from the norms of law and justice in a democratic republic to the strategy of secret police in an authoritarian regime. That would be a very good topic for a hearing, given how much ICE's budget has increased, and we should be holding and examining that question. Wars come with enormous costs. We know that the wars in the Middle East and Afghanistan and Iraq were staggering in terms of blood and treasure. More than 7,000 Americans killed. More than 50,000 Americans injured, often life-altering injuries. More than $6 trillion of national treasure expended. So here we are. America's at war. That'd be a good topic for a budget hearing. 7 U.S. service members already killed. The Pentagon estimating $1 billion a day. In fact, some of my colleagues have said it's $2 billion a day. A big change in expenditures and revenues. But none of those are the topics of today's hearing, the first we've had in a year. But we do have this topic that my colleague has pointed out, sanctuary cities. Well, sanctuary is a bit of a misnomer. Sanctuary states and cities are not places that are a safe haven where immigrants cannot be detained or deported. It refers to the decision that local police will serve as local police and not be commandeered to be assistant ICE agents. These policies are rooted in the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. And my colleagues across the aisle like to lean on states' rights. It's certainly a state right to refuse to have its local police commandeered to be assistant ICE agents. Assistants now to ICE operating as a secret police in the United States of America. So the idea that local police do local police work and ICE agents do ICE work is protected by our Constitution. But there's also a public safety rationale behind it. We know that when local police serve as local police, they build relationships with the community and decrease crime. Research shows that jurisdictions that choose for local police to be local police and not assistants to a secret police, refusing to be commandeered as a federal agent, they have a higher median household income, they have less poverty, they have less reliance on public assistance, they have lower unemployment. Those all sound like pretty good things to me. And they have lower crime rates. A 2022 study found that allowing local police to be local police, not commandeered to be assistant ICE agents, results in a decrease in crime rates in those communities. And why? Well, because in places where they do get commandeered to be assistant ICE agents, they get less information, less trust, less ability to prosecute, and crime goes up. So if my colleagues are all for crime, then persist in trying to violate the 10th Amendment and the wise wisdom of those states that see the wise separation with different roles. And there's nothing about local police being local police that hampers federal immigration enforcement. In fact, when people are arrested, fingerprints, data, crime are all put into a national database. So the federal government has all it needs. And if it wants to make sure that a person is handed over at the time that a person is completing their sentence in a local or state institution, all they have to do is get a judicial warrant. A judicial warrant. That's all that's required. We've already seen the harm that happens when the executive branch tells the executive branch that it's okay to override Americans' civil rights. The reason we have separation of powers in our Constitution, something being seriously eroded under this administration. So as a reminder, each of these issues, slashing nutrition assistance, gutting health care, increasing the wealth of billionaires, exploding deficits and debts, transforming ICE into a secret police, launching a war, are all appropriate issues this budget committee should be focused on. But the decision by cities and states to enhance public safety by having local police focus on local police issues is not a new change. And so it's puzzling to me why that's the decision for this first hearing in a year. What we know is that states and cities that let local police be local police do pretty damn well. With that in mind, I've invited two expert witnesses to join us today. Mr. David Beer from the Cato Institute, an expert on sanctuary policies, and the broader concerns about the Department of Homeland Security and its $170 billion for immigration enforcement with little accountability or oversight. Joining him is Mr. Brendan Duke from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, which focuses on critical budgetary concerns, including how the big, ugly betrayal law exploded our debt and raised the costs for working families. So I appreciate both of you joining us today. And while he's not able to join us for today's hearing, Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield has written a statement, and it explains how the home states, my home state, Oregon, how their policies to let police be police has assisted and helped him and the law enforcement officers keep Oregon communities safe. As he notes in his statement, Oregon's police policies have peacefully coexisted with 7 presidential administrations. Mr. Chair, I ask unanimous consent to enter his statement into the record. And I also ask unanimous consent to submit a statement for the record from the Law Enforcement Action Partnership, which states, quote, when local departments are pressured to prioritize federal immigration objectives, officer time and resources are diverted from serious threats such as violent crime, domestic violence, and community safety concerns. The result is a policing environment that is less effective and less trusted. Creating a less effective and less trusted local public safety environment should not be the objective of the federal legislature. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Quick question for all of you. You can just do a very simple, if it's okay, yes or no. I'm going to try to ask it as a simple yes or no question. Are you familiar with USC 1325?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yes.
You're not? Okay. So the law passed in 1952 is the Immigration Naturalization Act. It talked about how the country controls immigration. Mr. Wolf, start with you. Do you think that we made a mistake passing that law that prohibits people from entering this country illegally?
No, I don't think that's a mistake.
Sheriff, do you believe we made a mistake passing that law?
No, I don't think so.
Ms. Vaughn?
No.
Sabrina?
It was a mistake to not let them come legally. That's what we need.
But that's not what the law said. The law said you can't enter the country illegally. Was that
There were
part,
definitely mistakes in the INA.
Was that
Many
part,
mistakes.
Don't be cute. Was that part of the law a mistake? Yes or no?
The part of the law that says you can't come legally, yes, that was a mistake.
That was a mistake that you can't come illegally?
No, legally. Legally is what I said.
Okay. So you haven't answered my question, but that's okay. You're a smug guy, and that's part of your shtick. How about you?
I don't know anything about this law.
Do you think it should be a crime to enter the country illegally?
I don't know anything about this. I'm here to talk
Well,
about budgets with the budget.
You don't have to, look, I'm not a lawyer, you don't have to be a lawyer. It's a simple question. Should it be a crime, I'll say it slowly, should it be a crime to enter the United States of America illegally?
I don't
without
know anything
permission?
about this.
Do you have a home?
I rent.
Do you have a place that you sleep in?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Should it be a crime for people to enter your home without permission?
Yes.
You're pretty certain on that one?
Yes.
Okay, but you're not sure if it's okay to enter America without permission, which is our home, by the way. You don't know about America. Okay, gotcha. All right, so this is the best the Democrats can come up with, Mr. Chairman. I hope the ranking member can listen for just a second, if you don't mind. This is the best witnesses you've got. A guy who can't distinguish whether it's okay to have people enter our country illegally. Of all the millions of people that you could have chosen to testify.
To my good
you chose-
colleague.
let me finish. The best you have is a guy who has no idea what our immigration law is and isn't sure if somebody should enter the country illegally. Another guy is a smug guy who obviously has an agenda. And in fact, let me just ask you a question, because I was just asking
Maybe
flat.
stick to the facts instead of badgering
No,
the
not
witnesses.
not badgering the witnesses.
Well, you're
I'm asking
attacking them.
simple questions.
Yeah, why don't you ask some actual
But why
factual
don't you do this?
questions?
Why don't you speak when it's your turn? Because we actually
You're
take turns.
addressing me, so I'm addressing you back.
Because
You're looking right at me. You're addressing me.
Here's what I find ironic is that you follow rules here about speaking order. People can't speak out of turn, but it's okay with you that people enter our country and skip the turn. See,
now you're attributing views to me I haven't expressed. Isn't that interesting?
What I would love to find interesting.
Not only you're attacking witnesses, now you're attacking your colleagues
So-
here on the dais.
so
I think
gentlemen,
very inappropriate.
gentlemen.
You make it easy. All right, back to you.
Wait a minute. I'm in charge.
Yes, sir.
You ask him a question.
Yes.
He'll get a chance to answer that question. Finish your time.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next question, Mr. Sheriff. How important is it for local law enforcement to cooperate with federal officials?
I can tell you it's worked for us, and it's kept our crime rate down extraordinarily low.
So if somebody is in your position in Hamilton County, which is the county where Cincinnati is, or the Cincinnati Chief of Police, would you advise them that you think it's helpful to cooperate with law enforcement?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you find it interesting that that politicians who have no idea, no background in law enforcement will pass laws that prohibit law enforcement to cooperate with federal officials, local law enforcement? Do you think that's a good idea?
No, it's not a good idea.
It's a terrible idea. Do you have death threats against your sheriff deputies on a regular basis?
We get threats, not that often, but we do.
Constant
Yes.
death threats,
Yep.
or do you get
No,
constant?
not constant death threats, but we do get threats, yes.
Do you have drug cartels that have bounties out for your deputies?
No, we don't.
Do you get your agents doxxed where they go to your agents, your deputies' homes and threaten their children and their wives and their kids?
No, we have not.
Do you get politicians that call your deputies Gestapo and Nazis?
We've had certainly not politicians, not locally here, but certainly we've had a lot of people in the community that have said that.
Do you find any of that helpful when talking about law enforcement agencies? Because see, here's the irony. What we're disparaging is the people whose job it is to enforce the laws, and I find it extraordinarily interesting that the people in charge of making these laws are disparaging the people who are enforcing those laws. And I wonder, and I'll ask for the record if the minority witnesses could just sign an affidavit that they've not received any money and the organization that they work for or participate in from any organizations tied to the Mexican drug cartels, which would have an absolute incentive to have illegal migration at the levels that we saw under Biden.
If you have any reason.
We haven't accepted any drug cartel money.
Okay.
Again, if they could just put that in affidavit or an affiliated organization.
You okay, Mr. Duke?
I'd like to look at the affidavit.
Okay, fair enough. But do you know if you've accepted any money?
I do not know of anything like that.
Right, yeah, sure.
What we now commonly call sanctuary cities was born nearly 50 years ago in California, and since then has exploded nationwide. According to the Department of Justice, 12 states, District of Columbia, as well as 22 other jurisdictions for now are officially considered sanctuary jurisdictions. But as the chairman said, there are likely hundreds more. According to a 2024 report, nearly 8 million illegal aliens resided in those jurisdictions, and 1 in every 3 Americans, or 120 million Americans, live in sanctuary jurisdictions. To be clear, this is not a localized phenomenon. Ultimately, sanctuary policies affect every American. And so while not all sanctuary jurisdictions have the exact same policies, they all share a core belief that it is acceptable and even justified to ignore illegal immigration and violations of our immigration law. But our law is clear. Title 8, Section 1227 clearly states that aliens who enter the U.S. illegally or otherwise in the U.S. without lawful authorization are, in fact, removable. That is the mission of ICE. The law goes on to address those who harbor illegal aliens. Title 8, Section 1324 states that any person who encourages or induces an alien to come, enter, or reside in the U.S., knowing or in reckless disregard of the fact of such coming to, entry, or residence, will be a violation of law. Now, due to the Supremacy Clause and a long list of judicial opinions interpreting that, states do not have the authority to pick and choose which federal laws are recognized and enforced. And they do not have the authority to nullify federal laws by ignoring them or proactively creating obstacles to their effectiveness. Tragically, sanctuary policies are unleashing devastating consequences for the American people, particularly those that live in those jurisdictions. In California, again, the birthplace of the sanctuary movement, local politicians released 4,641 criminal aliens from local jails in 2025, rather than handing them over to ICE for removal. Those criminals included aliens that had committed homicide, assault, sexual predatory offenses, and burglary. And just weeks ago, as the chairman indicated, in Fairfax County, just miles from where we are today, a criminal illegal alien with more than 30 arrests fatally stabbed a woman in the neck. In that county, Fairfax County, has been a sanctuary for almost a decade, and this is the tragic result. Despite the dangerous nature of sanctuary jurisdictions, there are some that will not stop until we've become a sanctuary nation, largely free from all border enforcement and immigration enforcement. Calls for ICE-free zones, detention bans, and even an outright abolishment of ICE are becoming increasingly common. The evidence is clear. To restore the rule of law, common sense, and public safety, the era of sanctuary jurisdictions need to come to an end permanently. Thankfully, President Trump and numerous states are taking action, but legal challenges persist, and sanctuary jurisdictions are still largely able to exist under current law. Congress should take action. In my written testimony, I've outlined several recommendations to address this issue, including the need to hold local officials accountable for knowingly violating the law. Let us heed the lessons that we've learned from tragedies unfolding in cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Seattle, San Francisco, and others. The American people are safer when state and local governments cooperate with federal immigration agencies. State and local governments should give our agents access to their jails and prisons so that federal agents can screen prisoners, determine their immigration status, process removable aliens, and transfer custody to federal authorities once an alien is released. This requires little effort from local governments, yet under sanctuary policy, state and local officials often slam the door shut on immigration officers. I'd like to close with a simple question for those who continue to support sanctuary policies. How many more Americans need to die at the hands of illegal aliens released by sanctuary jurisdictions? Sanctuary cities must become an artifact of American history rather than the ongoing safe haven for drug dealers, narco-terrorists, murderers, and dangerous people who threaten the safety and the security of the American people. And let me just end on a comment made by the ranking member talking about secret police. I think that's an outrageous comment. I think the men and women of ICE are sworn law enforcement officers. They do their job. They're trained to do their job. They have a very dangerous job in what they do. and to continue to denigrate their job and how they go about it in such a dangerous environment, I think is a disservice to them.
Mr. Chairman, since the testimony involves the comment I made, I will just reply that if you don't want to be secret police, don't act like secret police. And I laid out the factual basis on exactly all the qualities that they are utilizing now that are the hallmark of secret police around the world. Thank you.
Chairman Graham, Ranking Member Markle, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. For half a century, the Cato Institute's research has shown that people, whatever their ancestry, background, or birthplace, can thrive in a free society. Immigrants come to work for us and with us to make our lives better. They work at higher rates and are nearly twice as likely to start businesses here. Immigrants have reduced government deficits by $14.5 trillion over the last 30 years. And yet, Congress has not updated the legal immigration system during that entire time. So just 3% of all legal immigrant applicants were approved in 2024. Rather than fix this broken system, the new administration banned half of all the legal immigrants who had made it to the end of that process, including spouses and children of U.S. citizens. The fallout from this flawed system is left to our cities to manage. In many areas, 1 in 5 residents lives with someone here illegally. Mass deportation is not an option for these places. It is an attack on them. It is taking Americans away from their spouses, parents, pastors, parishioners, employees, employers, customers, and friends. It's not us Americans versus them immigrants. Cities know immigrants are part of us. They also know that immigrants are here to build, not destroy. A mountain, literally a mountain of research proves that immigrants and reasonable limits on participation with ICE do not increase crime rates. Immigrants, even illegal immigrants, are half as likely to be incarcerated for crimes in the United States. According to DHS, only about 3% of illegal immigrants have any criminal convictions. Immigrants reduce crime rates, which means you're less likely to be a victim of a crime. Let me be clear. When a non-citizen does victimize someone, they should be convicted, imprisoned, and deported. But it is DHS that has ignored this formula. Just 28% of the people detained by ICE right now were convicted of any crime at all. This is no surprise. DHS has abandoned its public safety mission. It has stripped millions of vetted immigrants of their legal status just so that it could deport them. Instead of protecting us, DHS violates the Constitution. Its masked agents invade our homes without warrants. They detain without evidence, and they deport without due process. They intimidate, beat, and even kill Americans who protest. They arrest legal immigrants for writing opinion articles. They lie to the courts, and then they ignore them. With all this unconstitutional mayhem, Congress should not itself violate the Constitution by threatening local law enforcement, not for interfering with ICE, but rather for following their own local laws that they swore an oath to uphold. Under our system of federalism and the Constitution, Congress can't force cities to do its bidding, whether on immigration, guns, or the environment. If Congress wants cities to help DHS, it'll need those cities to trust DHS. But to get trust, you need to be trustworthy. And this DHS is not. Consider this, before this administration, Non-citizens were more likely to report serious crimes to the police than the US-born population. Now, DHS is arresting immigrant crime victims. For example, in Iowa, a shooting victim who helped bring to justice violent robbers was arrested by ICE before he had even healed. But since he had a pending charge for an unpaid traffic ticket, ICE considers him a criminal. This has caused filings for U visas for crime victims working with police to drop by 63%. This is not making Americans safer. Congress must require DHS to focus on real threats, and it must empower Americans to sue federal agents for violating the Constitution. We need accountability and constitutionality to restore trust. Thank you.
Is it accurate that Barack Obama deported 3 million people when he was president?
Those are total removals, not people deported from the interior.
What does that mean?
Well, there are people deported from the borders who never lived in the United States.
Were there people deported inside the United States?
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit unfair to compare people deported at the border versus people in the interior. I think Jessica would agree with this.
Listen. You don't want to answer a question, that's fine, but don't tell me what's fair and unfair. Bottom line, did he use judicial warrants to deport anybody? When he deported somebody interior, did he have a judicial warrant?
No.
No. Why? Because it's stupid. Mr. Wolf, tell me what would happen if we adopted his approach. You can't deport anybody unless you have a judicial warrant. Would that be effectively the end of deportation?
I think it would. I mean, if you just look
Don't you think that's what they want to do?
In part, absolutely.
Yeah, I think these people over here want to stop deportation.
So if you just look at the 1.5 or 1.6 million individuals here with a final order of removal, right? They've been through the judicial process. They've been to an immigration judge, probably an immigration board of appeals. And every time the judge says you don't have a legal right to be here, if you had to get a judicial warrant for each one of those, you'd be here for the next 20 years trying to remove the those 1.6.
But when a Democrat says you need a judicial warrant to deport somebody, they're turning, Obama didn't do it, did he?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
No, he didn't, because it's impossible. You just stop the whole system. You're not trying to reform ICE. You're trying to stop deportations. If it were up to you, we'd have more illegal immigrants. I hope people are paying attention to what the hell's going on in this country. Sheriff, tell me about what it's like to live next to a sanctuary county.
Well, we're the only ones that actually work with ICE and are able to get people out based on our 287G. We turn them over to ICE. We arrest them for criminal violations outside of their immigration status. They come and they pick them up and they're gone. And I'll tell you, it's made a big difference.
Well, those laws that you're enforcing, were they on the books before Trump became president?
Yes.
So all these laws were there before Trump became president, and Obama used them. Now, when we use them, all of a sudden we're Nazis. I think people see through this. Do you believe sanctuary city policy is bad for crime, Mr. Chapman?
I do. I think, the ability, if you look at us and compare it to our next door neighbor there, I think, maybe have notified ICE maybe about 7 times. Last year, it was 184 times for us. Those are people that could have been released back to our community that could have committed other crimes, and we don't need that here. It's irresponsible of me to allow that to happen and let these people back in our community.
Ms. Vaughn, how would you, what's your takeaway about sanctuary city policy? What damage has it done to our country, if any?
Well, there's the cost of the lives lost to illegal aliens who were released by sanctuaries. That's priceless. There's the fiscal.
This case behind me, Jelani, is that his name? He should have been deported. Do you agree, Ms. Vaughn?
Absolutely, yes.
You know, you're talking about suing somebody who's been abused by the government. Why don't we sue local prosecutors who put this in motion? I'd love to do that. So I'm going to try to find a way to give victims a chance to go to court when a local prosecutor puts back on the streets somebody with 30 priors. Do you support that idea, empowering people?
I do. I think that that would be an effective deterrent to sanctuary policies because they're adopted.
Make these counties and cities pay.
Right. They're adopted for political reasons, not public safety reasons.
Yeah,
And
what's the upside of ignoring federal law and keeping people like this out of federal custody? It's a political choice. So let me ask you this question. There was a clerk of court, Mr. Wolf, in Kentucky that did not want to issue a marriage license to a gay couple in spite of the fact the Supreme Court said that gay marriage was legal. And she went to jail. Do you think that's a good outcome? Should she have gone to jail for refusing to obey the law?
I think it's important to obey the law.
Yeah, I do
The
too.
law is
And
the
when
law.
I suggested that the clerk of court, who had a religious view, that she could not in good conscience issue a marriage license to a gay couple, even though the law required, she needed to get out of her job. I was, boy, what a great guy I was then. Now the shoe's on the other foot. All of a sudden, that's not a good idea. What you want to do is just ignore the laws you don't like. Is that where we're headed, Mr. Wolf?
I believe it is.
Well, let's stop it now. Let's end this madness. There is no upside to sanctuary cities. It's all downside. Senator Markle.
Well, no upside other than higher median household income, less poverty, less reliance on public assistance, lower unemployment, and safer communities, all of which seem pretty much on the upside from my point of view. Mr. Duke, what effect did the big, beautiful bill, as Trump called it, have on debt over the 10-year budget window?
CBO shows that it adds $4.7 trillion to the deficit.
That's a pretty whopping sum
It's
for
enormous.
one piece of legislation. And over 30 years?
It comes to $30 trillion
Wow.
with a T. Yeah.
What's our national debt right now?
As a share of GDP, it's around 100%.
And that's about $30 trillion. Yeah. So another $30 trillion. But if interest rates are 1% higher, how much more does that add to the debt?
I can't believe I'm saying these numbers because they sound like they're from Star Trek, but $50 trillion.
Yeah, $50 trillion. Well, thanks a lot, folks, for passing a bill that's going to add $30 to $50 trillion to our national debt, suppressing our investments in healthcare, housing, education, public safety, transportation, all important things for the welfare of America. And Mr. Duke, how did that bill affect the size of the working age population?
Yeah, so basically the combination of that, so first that bill funded ICE a lot, as you showed. And CBO says that it is going to shrink the number of people who are in the workforce because they are going to leave the country or be in detention camps. That directly shrinks our tax base.
Okay, so that has an overall effect on the GDP of our nation.
Fewer working people means a smaller GDP.
Okay. Mr. Beer, in states or cities that have policies, referred to as sanctuary policies, but more accurately, that dedicate local police to doing local police work, does those locations fully cooperate in detaining somebody when there's a judicial warrant for them?
Yes, absolutely. They turn over anyone subject to a criminal matter upon notice by the federal government that they have a warrant.
So those jurisdictions have entered into the FBI federal database, fingerprints, arrest record, what that person's being detained for, how long they're being sentenced. Federal government has all that information.
Exactly, yes. So they could go and get those individuals anytime they want. And in this case in Virginia, for example, the Laken-Riley Act, which they all supported, directed the Department of Homeland Security to get those people. And instead of getting those people, they're out on the streets profiling random Hispanic workers going to their jobs. So it's a total misdirection to blame the county when the Department of Homeland Security isn't even following the law that they passed.
Why not? Since they could get that warrant and pick up those individuals who have created violent crimes.
Because the White House has created an arrest quota. That's the only metric for success for them. How many arrests can you make today? And the fastest way to make arrests is indiscriminate raids, indiscriminate profiling of people on the street. That's what's led to this huge jump in the number of people and the, frankly, chaos that we're seeing in cities across the country.
So there was a chart in your longer written testimony showing that only 5% of the individuals booked by ICE have ever had a violent criminal conviction.
Yeah, and not only that, if you look at my written testimony as well, I talk about how the Department of Homeland Security has its own internal threat assessment that they assign to each individual who comes into their custody. And those people have to prioritize. They actually have a mandate. They can't be all political. They have to figure out who is actually a threat. And of those people, only 10% received the highest threat level, and 70% were deemed by the Department of Homeland Security to not be a threat at all.
So how does that match the campaign rhetoric about we're going to go after the worst of the worst, which I think 100% of Americans supported the idea that anyone who had created a violent crime should be investigated, should be prosecuted, should be, if convicted and incarcerated, should be deported. But those numbers don't match that.
Great campaign messaging, great messaging for a $200 million ad campaign by the DHS secretary, not based in reality at all. On day one of this administration, they rescinded all policies that forced ICE to focus on violent offenders and people with criminal convictions.
So they did the exact opposite of what they told the citizens they were going to do during the campaign.
It was a lie, just like it was a lie about all the things they said about Renee Good and Alex Preddy and all the other people that they've killed over the last year.
And you recommend, do I have time for a last question? My time has expired. You recommend in your testimony that there be a private right of action when individuals' civil rights are violated. Now, my understanding is that if local police or state police violate your civil rights, you have a cause of action against that. Is that correct?
Yeah, under Title 42, Section 1983, there's a private right of action against state and local, but not against the feds. And this is a critically important issue because right now they're recruiting all these state and local officers into essentially the ICE framework, which gives them immunity against all constitutional violations that they carry out while working in conjunction with the federal government. So we need to expand that to cover federal officers as well to make sure we don't have this immunity creep into every police department in America, which is their goal, including through this bill that we're talking about today.
So when the Vice President said ICE agents have absolute immunity in violating people's civil rights, he was right.
Effectively, yes. Right now, as the law stands.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yes.
Just one point of clarification. Is it your position that a nonviolent illegal immigrant shouldn't be deported?
My position is that we should give people who are peaceful people a path to citizenship. You endorsed that principle for many years, Senator.
So no matter how many people come?
No, it should be based on whether people have a demonstrable basis to remain in the United States, which is whether they contribute to this country or whether they're a threat to it.
I guess
we should have all law enforcement. I guess what you
don't understand,
threats.
And I don't want to, I'm familiar with the Gang of Eight bill, shut down illegal immigration. We did away with the magnets. We're going to give people a chance who've been here for a long time.
Your bill had the exact opposite approach of what this Department of Homeland Security is carrying out.
Listen. For 4 years, Biden obliterated the border. 11 million people came in. And the bill I was working on would have prevented that. He took everything we were trying to do to stop illegal immigration, be fair to the ones here, and blew a hole in it, and now we got 11 million more, and you want to give them amnesty. They'll never stop.
They've said that immigration is the cause of the growing national debt, and immigrants take more from the country than they contribute. Now, Mr. Beer, you've looked at this question very closely. Could you just respond to what I think is the second big lie?
Yeah, over the last 30 years, we looked at all the government budgets, federal, state, and local combined. Immigrants reduced deficits by $14.5 trillion, which is about a third of all of the total deficits during that period of time. And it's easy to understand why, because they work at 12 percentage points higher than the national average. They use less benefits because they're subject to constraints, unique barriers to applying for those benefits, in particular Social Security and Medicare, where those are by far our largest programs, and they're not eligible for those at all if they're here in the country illegally, or if they came legally and they don't have a sufficient work history to qualify. So you have clear reasons for believing that they are reducing the deficits and debt. They are a benefit to this country, and we need more people who are going to contribute in the future as our population ages.
Could you amplify a little more on the issue of Medicare and Social Security? Because those, trust funds in just a couple years, there won't, be enough to pay out full on the dollar for Social Security and Medicare.
That's
As
right.
you pointed out, there are many immigrants that are paying in to that, but not paying out. So could you just elaborate on that?
According to the Social Security Administration, we need about 35 million more workers in order to keep revenues equal to expenses by the middle of the 2030s. So we are at a position right now where immigration is not going to solve it. Obviously, it's not going to solve it, but it is moving us in the right direction. These are people who are showing up. They're ready to work. They're often prime age individuals who are ready to enter the labor force. So it's a huge benefit fiscally to the United States to have these people who want to contribute to our country.
Thank you. And thank you for exposing two of the big lies coming out of the Trump administration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The information we have is that 64% of the people encountered by ICE are either convicted or pending criminal charges. So if somebody's wrong, we'll find out who's lying.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, let's talk about some realities here. The ranking member talked about the funding for ICE rose dramatically this first year of the Trump administration. Well, this is why. Because for the previous 4 years, President Biden and the Democrats opened up the border. Now, I like this chart. First of all, save the president's life. But the other reason I like this chart is it shows cause and effect. And the catalyst for this explosion in illegal immigration really was deferred action on childhood arrival. That's what sparked this. That created the first incentive for people to come to this country illegally. That started the first wave. Now, back in 2014, these were massive numbers. I remember President Obama calling 2,000 a day was, a humanitarian crisis. I think under Biden, we had over 14,000 in a day average. So, Mr. Wolf, you were acting secretary trying to clean up the Obama mess. I remember leading a delegation down to McAllen, Texas, during the Obama administration, where we looked at the facility they set up, and everybody, Democrat, Republican, were singing the praises of DHS for kind of skirting the rules and establishing a facility that would keep the children safe as they were being encountered and detained across the border because of the incentive of DACA. A couple years later, on the Trump administration, that exact same facility, all of a sudden now the Democrats are calling that kids in cages. But first of all, will you just confirm the fact that that was the exact same facility that we praised in 2014, and all of a sudden, 2017, those are kids in cages?
That's correct. Those were Border Patrol facilities.
I think out of your department, last year we got a memo that said of the millions, and nobody knows exactly how many millions came in here, the wide open border. It's so out of whack. 650,000 people that are at large in America have committed crimes. 15,000 murderers, 20,000 rapists. Ms. Spear, you're shaking your head.
They're not at large. The murderers are in prison.
They're not
in prison where they should be.
They're not detained.
Yes,
Again,
they're detained by the state. They're not detained by ICE. They're in prisons ready to be deported. Now, I don't...
Ms. Vaughn, have you kept track of how many people have been murdered, raped, victims of vehicular homicide at the hands of somebody that the Biden administration led in this country?
I wish there were a way to do that, but so many law enforcement agencies do not keep track of the immigration status of people in their custody. They don't want to know.
Would you say it's in the hundreds?
Yes.
Thousands?
Yes.
Tens of thousands?
One data point that I do know is that at a certain point a few years ago, ICE determined that there were 10,000 deportable criminal aliens who were released by sanctuary policies who subsequently reoffended within 18 months.
So where is the outrage on the other side of the aisle to those victims and their families? You know, we had a hearing and in Homeland Security, and they were talking about the trained activists. The number was very large, but I couldn't believe it. Trained activists that are trained to basically interfere and obstruct with the legal law enforcement actions. And I made the comment, I can't imagine encouraging my supporters, first of all, to get trained to obstruct justice, much less then go ahead and do it, put yourself in harm's way, knowing people are going to potentially get hurt. Well, people did get hurt. Three people lost their lives. And now the other side exploits those martyrs while they completely ignore the thousands. And let's face it, it's thousands of the Lake and Rileys and those individuals. You know, where's the outrage to the crimes committed by that massive wave? And of course, I didn't want to have to spend money on ICE, but what are you going to do? And trying to clean up this mess, I mean, it's difficult enough for you to clean up Obama's mess. Try and clean up Biden's mess. And rather than getting help from the other side, no, they trained activists to obstruct trying to clean up that mess. That's the reality of the situation. That's why I agree, and I appreciate this hearing. We have to end sanctuary cities because it's just another incentive, a massive incentive for more illegal immigration. And the next time Democrats get in power, they'll open it up again.
Ms. Vaughn, what percentage of illegal immigrants in sanctuary cities or just in general receive federal benefits?
I don't have numbers for specific sanctuary jurisdictions,
just
but
in general.
Nationally, it's more than 60%.
So more than 60%
yes.
of illegal immigrants receive federal benefits, and it has absolutely no budget impact. Well, that's interesting. Senator Lee.
Secretary Wolf, thank you for your service. Why, in your opinion, do so many, not all, but so many of my Democratic colleagues believe in open borders?
Well, it's a good question. I think it's a couple of different fronts. One, it would be they don't believe in immigration law. They don't like enforcement. They don't like removing of individuals. And they believe that there are some that believe that anyone and everyone should be able to come to the U.S., whether they apply for protections under U.S. law or not. And then there's some probably that would like to see more voters in the U.S. as well.
Ms. Vaughn, some of my colleagues, for whom I have great respect, believe that the 10th Amendment allows local governments to ignore federal immigration law and implement sanctuary policy. The Supreme Court has ruled that racial quotas represent a pernicious form of racial discrimination. Can local governments ignore that ruling under the 10th Amendment?
Well, the 10th Amendment is about...
Can just answer my question, please, ma'am.
The 10th Amendment is about commandeering, and so it's not really appropriate to this because...
Is the answer yes or no, ma'am?
Could you ask me again? Because I don't understand the relevance to, I'm sorry, I don't, because ICE is not asking them
Secretary Wolf, you heard my question. Under the guise of the 10th Amendment, can local governments ignore a Supreme Court ruling?
I don't believe they can.
Okay. Women have the right to vote in America by statute and by constitutional interpretation. Under the guise of the 10th Amendment, can local governments just ignore that and prohibit women from voting?
No.
Okay. Mr. Duke, you worked for President Biden and Vice President Harris, didn't you?
Yes.
And I listened carefully to your testimony today. You expressed, well, you offered the opinion that the One Big Beautiful Bill is terrible in part because it will cause deficits. Is that right?
Yes.
Isn't it a fact that the profligacy of President Biden caused 9% inflation in America?
No.
Okay. Isn't it a fact that if President Biden had discovered life on Mars when he was president, he would have immediately sent it money?
I don't believe so.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, I appreciate your newly found fiscal conservatism. Mr. Beer, you seem to be a very smart guy, and you seem to be a nice enough guy.
Thank you, Senator. You seem smart as well.
Object.
Don't.
That was the chairman, not me.
Don't you think your hyperbolic statements undermine your credibility?
What hyperbolic statement did I make?
On February the 11th, 2026, you posted on Bluesky, quote, my words, or your words, not mine. The Democrats' video telling service members to ignore illegal orders didn't go far enough. They should have also urged them to refuse unethical orders, whether illegal or not. There are many things deemed legal that are still obviously unethical, and everyone should hold themselves to this higher law, end quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe you did. Do you disagree with it? You think people should do unethical things in their capacity?
On December the 31st of 2025, you posted in front of God.
But wait. Do you disagree with what I said?
Let me finish my question.
I'm sorry.
Answered, sir.
Sure.
In front of God and country, you said, quote, they, referring to Republicans, think they control their way into us accepting ethnic cleansing, end quote. Your words, not mine. Did I read that correctly?
That was in regard to a Department of Homeland Security post about advocating 100 million deportations. That is what DHS has tweeted from their own account. 100 million deportations would be ethnic cleansing. You would be removing 1/3 of the country. So yes, there are people within the Department of Homeland Security.
And you don't think this is hyperbolic? Give me 30 more seconds.
I think advocating 100 million deportations is
I'm having fun here,
ethnic
Mr. Chairman.
cleansing.
On February 5th, you quoted you said the following on Bluesky.
Your time's up.
These are all good, but there's no enforcement mechanism. I'm sorry. Let me try a better one. On March 2nd, you said, quote, if you rule against Trump's population purge agenda, no hyperbole there, the nativists will name you, threaten you, and come after you. These judges are much braver than the ICE agents who hide behind masks while violating the Constitution.
They are much braver. They put their names on their rulings and they stand behind their constitutional rulings. When I talk about population purge, I'm talking about the fact that they're trying to deport U.S.-born citizens, people born here. They are trying to deport them as well. So it's not a mass deportation agenda. It is also an agenda intended to reduce the population of the United States, including U.S.-born people.
Thank
so
you.
these are not hyperbolic statements. I appreciate you reading my account. I appreciate your
Here's the good news.
What planet did you just, wait a minute, Mr. Chairman, what planet did you just parachute in from?
No. Hey, guys.
You trigger my gag reflex, Mr. Beer.
So we got a process here, and it's good to know you don't have an agenda. I have a different view of things. Really appreciate the hearing. Obama deported 3 million people. I don't think all of them were criminals. They didn't use judicial warrants. What you're trying to do is make it impossible to deport people. If you have to go to a judge and get a judicial warrant to deport somebody, you effectively destroy the ability to deport. You're denying Trump the same system you are giving Obama. This hearing to me is stunning. I'm so glad we had it. You're all in on sanctuary city policy. If you're looking to America, if you're looking for anybody to change this system, our Democratic friends have no interest. They think it's good for America. The more illegal immigrants, the better. I don't. I'd like to have a rational immigration system. Gang of Eight, I was involved in it. What we try to do is stop future flow, and the trade-off was to give people a pathway to citizenship, knowing you would stop future flow. You're right, the House blocked the bill. During 2020 to 2024, Joe Biden destroyed every concept of rational immigration. He made it impossible for a Republican to sit down and talk with a Democrat because during his 4 years, he took every rule and ignored it. There are no taxpayer dollars associated with legal immigrants. They were flown into the country on airplanes. They were bussed in. They were fed. They were giving housing. 11 million people are not living in the streets. They're in some apartment or a house somewhere. And if you don't think that affects housing, that's crazy. 11 million people came at least in a 4-year period. And to hear you say it, no impact on this country. That's just absurd. So what are we going to do? We're going to try to start with the magnets. If you don't think sanctuary city policy is a magnet for future illegal immigration, that's just insane. How can you fix it if you don't take the magnets off the table? The bottom line is, I want a vote on my bill to hold local and state officials accountable for violating federal law when they should enforce it like they did during Obama. And you won't let me have a vote. You won't let me have the debate. The reason you don't want to vote is because 70 to 80% of the American public think the policies you're pushing are harmful. There is a budget impact to being overrun in a country in a 4-year period. To think this is not a problem is insulting to the American people. It is a problem. And you try to rationalize it and make it a good thing. It's not a good thing, it's a bad thing. At the end of the day, if you can't answer the question, it should be a crime to come into the country legally, that says all you really need to know about the people here. Of course it should be. It should be a crime, as Senator Moreno said, to go in your house without being voted. We cannot have a sovereign nation when people just show up and come in and go anywhere they want to go. That's just not rational. We've got more people on the terrorist watch list than we've ever had, 2,700%. The people who've come here are all not well-meaning. I understand immigration pretty well. I understand the need to fix it. The American people want to be fair, but Senator Markle, they're not going to buy into a system that constantly allows people to come in unchecked. Once you can prove to them you've stopped illegal immigration, then we could have a rational discussion about what to do with people in here a long time. But you've doubled or tripled the number of people. So all I will say, this is a debate worthy of a great nation. Our Democratic friends are accepting of a sanctuary policy. They don't think it's a problem. I do. Let's have a debate. Let's have a vote. This will be good for the country going into 2026 as to who should be in charge of controlling our borders and enforcing law. This administration is enforcing the law. The prior administration obliterated the law. Thank you very much to all of you for coming. I appreciate your time and attention. Senator Markle, thank you. The hearing is adjourned. And, one second. I want to introduce a statement. Yeah, you can finish up. Donald Rosenberg was unable to be here. I'd like to put his statement in the record. He represents victims of legal alien crime. Without objection, I'd like to introduce his statement, if that's okay. Is it okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. I want to thank our witnesses for preparing for the committee. You want to finish your thought? Go ahead.
Mr. Beer, you have a pile of documents. Did you want to enter those into the record? What are those documents?
Without objection.
These are all the studies.
Okay.
These are all the studies that show that immigrants do not increase crime, and places that place restrictions on ICE cooperation are not resulting in an increase in crime.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Okay. The hearing record will remain open until noon tomorrow for the submission of questions for the record to the committee clerk. The hearing is adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.